So very pleased to have Joel Grossman share with us. And I think one of the things that's for me exciting and delightful about today is to have this richness of speakers and different of perspectives. So Joel, please.
I'm going to cover 6 topics today. Bear with me, I have a voice problem. We're going to start with the definition of geospatial archaeology, a GIS-friendly definition. The concept of historic GIS we use in archaeology and 3D paleo-environmental reconstruction and its role in planning. Our buried city under Manhattan and why we do this. The range of archaeological data, what is the data that we will be dealing with? And finally, if there's time, real-time 3D, true color, LIDAR, and photogrammetry in archaeology. A GIS-friendly definition of archaeology. Why is an archaeologist at a forum like this? Well, because we're simply a layer in a GIS universe. We are another layer. We operate in a geospatial universe. I have a definition: study of quantifying. Geospatial archaeology treats the physical record of unwritten history as the study of quantifying three-dimensional data in a stratified series of georeference planes, deposits, and surfaces, GIS. Or friendly definition, a 3D layer cake through time. One of the concepts that deals, that I focus on in archaeology is something I call historic GIS. And that is the key. I'm going to use 3 case studies: New Jersey Meadowlands, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Radium Corporation. We'll be talking about paleo-environmental reconstruction, and I will be showing models of Manhattan to the idea of the role of GIS in historic studies in archaeology. We start out with, what do we know? Base map, historic base map is this concept of all known sites, archaeological sites in historic areas. We then plot confirmed sites and historic structures, and we subtract modern infrastructure and historic impacts, and we come up with a drastically reduced study area. Instead of 100% of X square mile, we're dealing with 10 to 20% of it through the GIS process. So it's targeting and it is resolution of data. From a theoretical model to a practical model, this is in Puerto Rico, and it has to do with an archaeological site that was discovered, a Taino Indian village discovered in the path of a $100 million federal sewer program. That program was initially stopped by the government because the Puerto Rican Sewer Authority bulldozed some prehistoric sites. All the money was frozen, a number of people went to prison, and I was brought in to implement emergency response to excavate Taino village. And we started out with a terrain model showing the location of the palm trees. We then mapped using EDM transit all the land crab holes, because the crabs tended to take the archaeological artifacts and make nests out. And then we had a modern dump on and under this archaeological site. And we used geophysics, conductivity, to map the buried extent of disturbed areas. And then I subtracted palm trees, the crab holes, and the debris from the overall project area, compared it to areas of consensus archaeological remains, where the pottery was, based on threshold, and targeted areas with no disturbance, high yield of data, and no crab holes. And we came up with a buried Indian village. This is another case study. This is the master plan, the SAMP study for the New Jersey Meadowlands. Again, using their photo base map, historic overlay. attraction of modern infrastructure, and projection of archaeological sensitivity in the New Jersey Meadowlands. This is done by the Army Corps. So some of the projects can be somber. This is a flat GIS reconstruction of the historic house distribution in U.S. Radium impact area in New Jersey. And that's a somber example of GIS in archaeology. One of the things that I do is paleo-environmental reconstruction, not for show and tell, but for target acquisition. And we're going to illustrate quickly see the discovery of the Dutch city under Manhattan. If it's under Manhattan, it's under the rest of the city, of the country as well. If we can do it here, we can do it in view, projection, the reference section of where the settlement was, an overhead view, our base map, combined with what was mentioned before, Viely's 1865 topographic map of Manhattan, which shows terraces, plateaus, and drainages. And as the gentleman said before, where they dig, they find what was on the Viely map, and we do too. We know, for example, that 60% of our archaeological prehistoric sites are found at the confluence of rivers. And if we can reconstruct the drainage patterns under Manhattan, we can project the archaeological sensitivity. So we took the Viely map and we extruded it in 3D into a contour map, turned that into a DEM model, and then I reconstructed the shape of 17th century Manhattan using that DEM data. Then I plastered the surface with vegetation. Now, how do I know what that vegetation is? Because we recovered the ancient seeds from the archaeological site, so we know what the landscape looked like. This is the distribution of seeds, the smallest kind of archaeological data. Mid-17th century, late 17th century, early 18th century, mid-19th century, and you see the change in the plant communities through time. So we can reconstruct landscape using archaeological data. This is a 3D model of what a Dutch garden under Manhattan looked like in 1640. Every plant in the garden is recovered archaeologically. Each plant is an individual model. If you turn on the air, they flow with the wind. Finding unburied Manhattan, Pearl Street, a schematic map of historic New York, where we excavated the shoreline of Manhattan. Blasted out a city block. I dewatered the block first, used geotechnical data to project the depth of historic fill relative to prehistoric landscape topography. And I made a gamble. I gambled, it was a multi-million-dollar gamble. I gambled that the sea level had risen above the 17th century levels in lower Manhattan by the time they built 19th century row houses, 1830s. I was right. We blasted out the fill, cut through the 19th century floors, and hit what has been described by the explorers as the green clay of Manhattan. And on the green clay of Manhattan was a pipe. Also encountered was the cobblestone floor of the first warehouse in the New World. This is what we found in the outline of the warehouse, the cobble, 18th century structure, the 19th century basement floor, 8 to 12 feet of fill on top of it, and stuff that's still there. This is the foundations of the 1740 home of Van Tienhoven, the Secretary General of the Dutch West India Company. He found his home. This is a double-barrel system collecting water. And the water in Lower Manhattan was called tea water because it was so pure and clean. What did we find? 40,000 Dutch artifacts I was blunderbuss, sword hilt, anything, pewter cup with a bullet hole in it, and a 1590 coin, obviously an heirloom. How did we excavate in real time? Data was collected in the field concurrently. I deal with emergency response, not with long-term planning. I'm brought in after the site is discovered belatedly. Should have been found before, but it wasn't. And one of the elements of the recovery program of GIS is real-time data control, collecting it as you. What does the data look like? It's ASCII data, rows and columns of data. The sequence number, individual, X, Y, and Z, material involved, the function involved, material is, these are coded, and the actual context. So for every artifact excavate, there's complete 3D control in real time. This is a profile under Manhattan, and we have data that's relevant to sea level rise. And this is the system base. This is the top of salt water in the 17th century. This is a 17th century benchmark for sea level rise. The 19th century tide gauge data is unreliable for earlier periods. And finally, this is the first case of LIDAR used in Manhattan, the CIRUS system in 2001. You notice that the LIDAR is monochrome, and that was the first generation of LIDAR. I use terrestrial LIDAR. There's airborne LIDAR and there's terrestrial LIDAR. Terrestrial LIDAR will deal with a block, a building, an archaeological site. By 2004, instead of a gray monochrome model, the corporations had come out with Regal Corporation with an integrated digital camera. So that what the LIDAR saw sandwiched onto it the true color photograph of the surface. Oftentimes I work in adverse conditions. This was minus 15 degrees. We were working in 14 degrees temperature Fahrenheit. Why is it relevant? Because the equipment fails in freezing weather. I also got into but we were able to set up link control, datum control to a tenth of a foot throughout a project. This was a case where a pre-Civil War dam was destroyed by a flood. This is what the LIDAR saw. This is the LIDAR image, unprocessed, of the data. This is the LIDAR reconstruction of the buried dam before the Civil War. And this is the model with the photographic coverage sandwiched on top of it. And what that permitted us to do was to reconstruct the Civil War dam in 3D, high precision, without being there. It was very dangerous. So we didn't have to go down and actually measure. We did it remotely. And we were able to reconstruct the dam without getting hurt. And this is a cross section of the dam. I took it with a metric camera. As I took it, the embankment I was on collapsed under me, and I was pulled out by a safety harness, which in terms of water and response is critical. I work in Superfund and in unexpected situations, and so these capabilities were applied in practical problem-solving cases. And as a final image, this is a metric image. I took the photograph, I georeferenced it to a vertical plate, and then sandwiched onto it the LIDAR. And so we have a photogrammetric LIDAR reconstruction of the historic dam, and nobody got hurt. Thank you.
Joel, maybe you could help the audience understand where an integrated, maybe soil hydrological model would be of value to your community.
Integrated hydrological
I mean, if you could see all of this with the soil layers, with the water layers, I mean, where is the value in that?
Well, as a part of even in an emergency where there's unexpected discovery, after the homework had been done, people did environmental impact studies. They said nothing's there. Start construction. The Teamsters are on site. 100 million's been allocated, and they hit King Tut. Then guys like me come to town. It's not through the normal acquisition process. This is Army and this is EPA. Whatever information there is on soils, we collect. Whatever information there is on hydrology, we collect. Because that becomes critical base data for us deciding how deep to go and where we go. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted, I know we were discussing at lunch, geotechnical methods, and
Yeah.
you're a big advocate. It's come a long way. It makes just a sense.
Yes, okay. Well, I first used radar, ground penetrated radar in 1978, just to give you an example. This stuff has been around. It's resolved in capability. We use geotechnical techniques, geophysics, as a standard operating tool in archaeology. And at the case study of the crabs in Puerto Rico, I used conductivity to measure the buried refuse and debris. And then I subtracted those areas of refuse accumulation from the study area and targeted only undisturbed areas. So the geophysics became a planning tool for impact analysis to reconstruct what had been disturbed versus what was not disturbed. So we didn't waste any public money on disturbed underground trash or disturbed areas. Thank you.